As you talk about this organic evolution, this 0 to 1 phase, right, which is really about the product market fit, getting those early validations, signing up those early customers who are willing to take a bet on a company that's still in its early phases. So walk us through that, because a lot of entrepreneurs are going to be listening to this and watching this, and they're going to say, you know what, the 0 to 1, people keep talking about it, but how in the world do you make it happen? So especially in your case, you're going after global, large, insurance companies and, in the financial services vertical or healthcare. How did you make that happen? Did serendipity play a role there, or was it something more methodical that you had to deploy?
I think a little bit of everything again. But the most important ingredient, I would say, would be to try and be as frugal as possible as you try to take your product idea. And we did dabble around and try different things before we zeroed in on who we were going to be serving. We realized very quickly and very early on that the product that we were building, or the platform at the time that we were conceiving of, made sense for large enterprises. So serendipity was still one of the things, because in this pursuit of the large enterprise, I was actually flying to New York to meet the CTO of Schneider Electric, a very large company, right? And I was sitting next to an executive in an airplane ride. It was a red eye, and I worked through the night because I had to make a presentation as soon as I landed. And the person sitting next to me, she woke up an hour before we were to land and asked, "Hey, what are you didn't seem to catch any sleep. Looks like you're working on something really important." So struck a good conversation for about 10 minutes with Jennifer Jacobs. And she introduced herself as running strategy for this company called Unum. And she said, I told her what we do as a company, and she was like fascinated with the whole idea of a startup, that you'd quit your job and take the plunge and do something like this. But she was nice enough to put me in touch with her senior vice president of business development, who was running innovation for Unum at the time, Ted Reed. And again, serendipity, right? So when I presented to Ted Reed a few weeks later, he said, "Hey, totally makes sense. I think you're onto something here. I think we can take this to," we were talking about how we could enable claims and other things in the insurance world. I caught on to that. And then fast forward 3 years later, it's an amazing customer of ours, and we've done extremely well. We've done a lot of work, and now we are rinsing and repeating this with a number of other customers.
That's awesome. And by the way, is it important? I think I love the serendipity idea, but is it important, or how important is it to find the right champion at the right level for a company like Ushur, for example? Do you go after the decision maker right off the bat, or do you work from the bottom up as you build ambassadorship within an enterprise?
I think it's both, right? I don't think anyone buys from anyone just because you got the CEO to introduce you to somebody in the organization. I have not seen that work for us. Those introductions are incredibly valuable because they help open some doors, but eventually, whosoever you meet, whether it is top down or bottoms up, they need to be convinced on the value that you're enabling them.
Got it. And actually, let me ask you a question I should have asked at the very beginning, which is, I love the positioning of the company as not just process automation, but really intelligent automation, right? So maybe if you could, for the audience, just describe in a minute or two what it is that Ushur does and does so well.
Yeah, so the name Ushur, as you can tell, is someone who gets you where you want to get to. And there's a little backstory behind how that name came about for another conversation, probably. But suffice it to say, it was a music concert that I was going to, and there was an usher who got me to this, among 3,000 people. I found my way to my seat very, very seamlessly. I just loved that experience. I thought that every customer experience should be that experience. And I thought that was an appropriate name. So
Got it.
at Ushur, what we do is we take those customer journeys and enable that through a digital first and automation first approach. And so we enable big brands to deliver breakthrough customer journeys and customer experiences through an automation first strategy. We started with what we call front office automation, which is taking those customer conversations and delivering them over digital channels. Right? A digital first approach to everything that you do as a business. And as we started supporting customers, more and more use cases where those customer journeys would get stuck in the back office because a knowledge worker had to get involved because of the silos that exist in a typical enterprise. Our evolution to a full end-to-end intelligent automation became a very organic growth for us.
And actually, one of the things that got me excited, to be honest, is when I put myself in the shoes of customer. So I've been in those situations where I'm on hold for 30, 45 minutes to get an answer from my provider. I'm glad Ushur is there to help. Shifting just a little bit, 2 or 3 final set of questions. One having to do with teams.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're building actually a global team. You've got a team here in Santa Clara in Silicon Valley. You've got a team and perhaps a growing team in Bangalore, India. How are you thinking about scaling the team? Do you do it sort of preemptively because you anticipate business growing? So talk about that a little bit, just sort of the timing of it. And the other piece is, are you somebody who feels comfortable, hiring, let's say, at the C level, and that letting that individual hire, director and managers underneath him or her? Or do you like, building from the ground up, and you don't necessarily need a C level perhaps until you get to a certain, critical mass?
Yeah, so I think there were 2 questions there, but let me take them. So in just in terms of how we think about scale and the growth for us, we were 6 people before we raised our venture round. And in the summer of 2018, after we raised our venture round, going from a family, we became a small tribe, right? So last summer, we were like about 50 people, thereabout. And then COVID happened. And so we kind of were figuring out, what does the next 18 to 24 months look like. But, thankfully for our business, COVID only became a forcing function for digitization and digital transformation and all that. So we realized that the opportunities were massive and we needed to go raise a round. So we did raise a round in the summer last year. We closed that in October of 2020. And now we are scaling. And that scaling means that we are investing quite a bit more in our go-to-market efforts. So we have to repoint our pursuits. We are going to look at a vertical like insurance, for example, and make sure that we can build a go-to-market team of marketeers, salespeople, and the entire paraphernalia of the GTM team that can actually help us acquire more customers, right? And that requires some industry knowledge and experience. And so there are some very natural adjacencies for us. We serve healthcare companies like CVS and Aetna and Cigna today. And so as we look at that market, there is a natural opportunity in the healthcare vertical, right? And some of the insurance companies we serve are also financial services companies. So financial services and banking is yet another natural extension. They just bleed into it. So our go-to-market is largely vertical focused. You need to continue to invest in your engineering. The second part of your question, would we hire C-levels or would we hire? I think it depends on the function, right? I mean, because the founding team has such a strong product background, we won't worry about having to bring in a VP of engineering, for example. But on the sales side, I think there may be some truths to bringing in a CRO or a senior vice president of sales who can look at all the routes to market, whether it is the strategic selling that we are doing today, or the tier 2, tier 3 non-strategic accounts that we want to go after, the channel relationships, all of that. I think we would probably be better served if we bring in a sales leader who can build out some of those functions.
Now, as we wrap up, just a last couple of questions. One, is just Iron Pillar. I mean, we got connected again completely. It was serendipity. I was running a panel on behalf of the MIT Club of Northern California. There was a last minute cancellation, and the gentleman who was filling in was Sebastian Kaleri from 8VC, and that's how I got introduced to 8VC.
Love Sebastian. He's a great guy. Really.
Yeah. No, it was brilliant, and it was not supposed to happen. So I, in a strange way, thank my friend from the other venture firm that shall remain nameless for canceling, so that Sebastian could step in and eventually lead to an introduction to Bhaskar Ghosh at 8VC, who then connected us. And the fact that I know Paul Singh, your former colleague from Viraz.
As you know, Mohanjit, we were oversubscribed, and I had to go seek some room from our board to bring you into this into this investment. So I'm thankful that both BG and Rob made room for this to happen. I'm really grateful. I think we know at least 3 or 4 other people in our network, and we have discovered that those connections.
Several more. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I think from an Iron Pillar perspective, what I saw was strong network of senior level prospective customers, right, that you guys are part of. I think that was something that I got excited about. You got interested about Ushur because that we have this product building capability that we are enabling from our Indian center. Look, I think a lot of the entrepreneurs, and you do this not because you need someone else to drive you. The grunt work of applying yourself and all the smarts. Grit is definitely the most essential ingredient for a founder. I rely on a few things. Of course, I have an amazing family that's super supportive, and that keeps me focused and centered. And I'm a distance runner, and I use that quite a bit to energize me. Being physically fit allows you to take the beatings that you end up taking. So that's definitely something I'm a big believer, and I encourage all my teammates to have a good physical health and mental health focus, right? So if you're of sound body and mind, then you can go on to do some amazing things in your life. So that's one. Another thing that keeps me going is I love singing. I'm a trained musician. Earlier on in my life, I spent first 15-20 years learning Carnatic music, and then I've learned some Hindustani music as well. Music kind of keeps it all together, So those are the 2 things that I really rely on.
Good for you. Well, look, Simha, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure having a conversation like this with you. Keep singing, keep running, keep doing what you're doing. Stay healthy physically and mentally. I think it's very well said, especially in times like these.
By the way, a little bird told me that there is a tabla player on the other end of this conversation. So hopefully I am
yes.
looking forward to jamming with you.
Excellent. Maybe we could put an Iron Pillar band together. But I look forward to the opportunity to have you sing, and I'm happy to be the double T in the back. But again, Simha, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time, for all your energy, for all you do.
Thank you.
And looking forward to amazing milestones with Ushur. Thank you again.
Likewise. Thanks, Mohanjit. It's always good talking to you.